Code red in the DMV. The defense is in the ICU with 7 key players down and our head coach making a desperate power move. Can one person stop the bleeding before the Madrid meltdown? Meanwhile, a veteran safety steps up as a potential lifeline. But is this one ready for the fire or just another mirage? And to top IT off, a national media quake is shaking the very future of our franchise QB thanks to a hidden threat that's got all of Washington on edge. This is not a drill, folks. The season is hanging by a thread, and what we're about to break down could change everything. You ready for the raw truth? Lock in, hit that bell, and smash that like button right now. News 1. Injury crisis and defensive shakeup. The Commanders' defense just took the hardest hit of the entire season. And what Dan Quinn did on Monday might be the biggest decision of his head coaching career in Washington. Let me lay it all out for you, because this is critical. Trey Amos, our second-round rookie corner, broke his fibula against Detroit. This kid was one of the few bright spots in the secondaries that's been bleeding yards all year. 39 tackles at Ole Miss, 13 pass breakups, all sec honors. He was the future of our secondary. And now he's out indefinitely missing the Madrid trip and likely several more weeks. But hold up, because the injury list is absolutely brutal. Marshawn Lattimore, who just got here via trade and hasn't played a single snap, still out. Dietrich Wise Jr., our veteran edge rusher brought in for leadership, out. Javonte Jamupta out. Drake Jackson out. Dorrance Armstrong out. Will Harris is back at practice this week from IR, but won't be ready for Madrid. Jonathan Jones left the Detroit game with a groin injury, and Ale Cajo is in concussion protocol. You get what this means? We're talking 7 key defensive starters or rotational guys who won't be available against Miami. 7! This is a defense that's already been giving up an average of 28 points per game over the last 4 weeks. A defense that hasn't been able to generate consistent pressure since week 6. And here's the real kicker. Dan Quinn took over defensive play calling from Joe Witt Jr. this week. Let me say that again because it's huge. Quinn, our head coach, who built his rep as a defensive coordinator with the Seahawks and Falcons, who took Atlanta to Super Bowl 51 with an elite defense, is now calling the plays himself. You know what that tells me? Quinn saw something in those 44 points Detroit dropped on us that made him say enough. Because when a head coach takes play calling away from his own DC mid-season, especially one he personally hired, that's a statement. That's Quinn saying, I'll fix this myself or this season ends now. I'm telling you right now, this is a do-or-die move for our season. We're sitting at 3-7 on a 4-game losing streak, and every loss from here on out buries our playoff hopes deeper. Quinn knows his credibility is on the line. He sold this organization and this city on the idea that he could build a winning culture, that his defensive expertise would take us to the next level. But here's the cold, hard truth. With this many injuries, not even Dan Quinn can work miracles. We're flying to Madrid with practice squad corners, edge rushers who were sitting on their couches 3 weeks ago, and a secondary that's about to face Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle with tape and prayers. So I ask you this, can Quinn really overhaul the defensive scheme in 4 days of practice, with half the roster in the training room, and expect us to compete against one of the most explosive offenses in the league? I think this is the ultimate trial by fire for Quinn as a head coach. Because if he can't stabilize this defense now with his own play calling, then we've got to start asking some tough questions about this Commanders era. But here's what's got me thinking. Quinn ain't new to this. This man built the Legion of Boom in Seattle. He knows how to maximize limited talent. He knows how to scheme around weaknesses. And if there's anyone in this building who can get practice squad corners and third-string edge rushers to play above their level, it's Dan Quinn. The question is, does he have enough time to make it work? We're talking about flying to Madrid on Wednesday, practicing in a foreign country with jet lag, and facing Mike McDaniel, one of the most creative offensive minds in the NFL. McDaniel's going to watch that Detroit tape, see all those no-name DBS, and cook up a game plan to exploit every single weakness. And let me tell you something about Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. These dudes don't need much help to torch a secondary. Now imagine what they'll do against corners who literally just signed their contracts 2 weeks ago. That's elite speed versus zero experience. That's a recipe for disaster, but I'll say this. If Quinn somehow holds Miami under 24 points with this defensive roster, that's a straight-up miracle. And if we somehow win this game in Madrid with all these injuries, with a midseason play caller switch, that could inject this team with the kind of confidence that flips the whole season. Because here's the deal. We still have 8 games left. 8 chances to prove this season ain't over. And if Quinn can steady this defense, if Lattimore finally suits up in the coming weeks, if some of these injured guys return after the bye, then we've still got a shot to finish 9-8 or 10-7 and fight for a wild card spot. But it all starts in Madrid. It all starts with Quinn proving he can do more with less. that he can take these practice squad players and turn them into legit contributors. Because if he can't, if Miami drops 35 or 40 on us, then this season officially becomes a 2026 evaluation. News 2. Will Harris returns. And if you thought it was all doom and gloom on defense, let me give you a little hope. Because while we're talking about all these injuries, there's one name that just popped up on the injury report that could be huge for this defense's immediate future. Will Harris. The Commanders officially designated Harris to return from injured reserve on Tuesday. Now, for those who don't know the technical side, that opens a 3-week window where Harris can practice with the team before we have to activate him to the 53-man roster. But here's the key. Harris has been out since week 3 in September with an ankle injury that's kept him shelved for nearly 2 full months. And let me remind you who Will Harris is, because this dude is no scrub. We're talking about a 6-year vet who the Commanders signed to a 2-year, $8 million deal this offseason. That's $4 million a year for a safety with experience in both coverage and run support. Harris came over from the Saints after spending his first 5 seasons with the Lions, where he was a 3rd-round pick in the 2019 draft out of Boston College. And while his numbers this year were limited due to injury, in the 3 games he did play, Harris logged 11 total tackles, 1 forced fumble, and 1 pass deflection. Solid numbers for someone still finding his role in a new defensive system. Now let me ask you this. Why is Harris's return so important right now? Because our secondary is absolutely wrecked. Jeremy Chin has been trying to do everything back there. Percy Butler's been forced into responsibilities that are honestly above his current development level. And with Trey Amos now out with that broken fibula, we're in desperate need of veteran experience, someone who can communicate coverages, make real-time adjustments, be that quarterback of the secondary every DC needs. And that's exactly what Harris brings. Because when you've got a secondary full of practice squad corners and young safeties, you need someone back there who's seen every formation, every route concept, every offensive tendency coordinators will throw at you. Harris has over 70 games of NFL experience. He's played against Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers. He knows what it takes to survive in this league. But here's the critical question. How healthy is Harris really? Because being designated to return from IR is one thing, being game ready is another. Ankle injuries for safeties are especially tricky because these guys need to plant and change direction instantly. They need to backpedal in coverage and explode forward in run support. If Harris still has any limitations in that ankle, his effectiveness is going to take a serious hit. I think the Commanders are going to be super cautious with his return. They're not going to rush him for the Madrid game, especially since he just opened his practice window. We'll probably see him back after the bye week, once they've had time to fully evaluate him and make sure he's 100%. But let me tell you why this is a smart move by the organization. By designating him to return now, they're sending a message to the rest of the roster that help is on the way. They're telling these practice squad guys, hang in there. Reinforcements are coming. That's huge for team morale when you're in the middle of a 4-game skid. And here's the other thing. If Harris can come back and be even 80% of what he was pre-injury, that gives Quinn way more flexibility in his defensive play calling. He can start running more cover 2, more cover 4, more schemes that require advanced communication between safeties. Because right now, with all the inexperience in the secondary, Quinn's basically stuck calling simple coverages that don't need much pre-snap communication. But you know what's really got me intrigued? The timing of this move. The Commanders could have waited another week or 2 to designate Harris. But they did it now, right when the defense is at its lowest point of the season. That tells me they believe Harris can be a difference maker, that they've seen something in his rehab that gives them confidence he can contribute soon. And if I'm right, if Harris comes back in 2 or 3 weeks playing at a high level, suddenly this defense doesn't look so hopeless. Suddenly you've got Lattimore eventually, Harris, and maybe a few of those edge rushers returning from minor injuries. Suddenly, the second half of the season looks a lot more manageable. But it all comes down to health. It all depends on Harris proving over these next 3 weeks of practice that his ankle is fully healed and he can play at the level the Commanders need. Because if he can't, if he has a setback or just isn't ready, then we're right back to duct taping the secondary together and hoping for the best. News 3, Colin Cowherd controversy, and now we get to the story that's got the entire Commanders nation absolutely heated. Because while we're out here battling injuries and trying to salvage our season, a national analyst decided now was the perfect time to take a shot at our franchise quarterback. Colin Cowherd on his show The Herd this week made a statement that's got everyone talking. While discussing under 25 quarterbacks he wouldn't extend, Cowherd put Jaden Daniels on that list. And his reasoning was absolutely brutal. Jaden Daniels. I just can't. He's been hurt 4 times in a year and a half. Let me repeat that so it's crystal clear, Colin Cowherd. One of the most influential voices in national sports media. Just said publicly that he would not give Jaden Daniels a contract extension because of durability concerns. And not only that, he lumped Daniels in with Brock Purdy. Michael Penix Jr., and B.O. Nix. Now let me ask you this, are they serious? Are we really having this conversation about Jaden Daniels after what he did in his rookie season? Let me remind you of the numbers. 3,568 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, only 9 picks on the ground, 891 rushing yards, and 6 more touchdowns. Those are ELITE numbers for a rookie quarterback. That's production only a handful of QBS in NFL history have ever matched in their first year. But Cowherd wants to focus on the injuries. He wants to talk about how Daniels has had multiple health issues since entering the league. And look, I'm not going to lie to you, he's got a point. Injuries are a legit concern when you're talking about handing out $200, $250, maybe even $300 million to a quarterback. Let's look at this season. Daniels has played in only 7 games before this latest injury that's keeping him out of the Madrid trip. In those 7 games, he threw for 1,184 yards, 8 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He ran the ball 54 times for 262 yards and 3 more scores. But he also fumbled 3 times. And now he's out again with Marcus Mariota stepping in. And here's what's really got Cowherd spooked. The pattern. This isn't just one freak injury. Daniels got hurt in training camp, hurt in preseason, hurt during the regular season last year, and now he's hurt again. That's 4 significant injuries in less than 2 years since being drafted 2nd overall. I think Cowherd's seeing the ghost of Robert Griffin III, and honestly, who can blame him? Every Commanders fan has that fear in the back of their mind. We all remember what happened to RG3. We saw how a knee injury in his rookie year derailed what could have been a legendary career. We saw how a dynamic, electric quarterback who could change games with his arm and legs became a shell of himself because his body couldn't handle the NFL grind. And the parallels are scary. Daniels, like Griffin, is a dual-threat QB who relies on athleticism to make plays. Daniels, like Griffin, won the Heisman in college. Daniels, like Griffin, was a high draft pick with massive expectations. And Daniels, like Griffin, has already dealt with multiple injuries early in his career. But here's where I push back on Cowherd. Daniels' injuries so far haven't been catastrophic. We're not talking torn Achilles. We're not talking broken legs. These have been minor injuries that have kept him out 1, maybe 2, max 3 games at a time. And most importantly, no surgeries. That means no major structural damage that needed to be repaired. So here's what I'd say if I were Adam Peters, the Commanders GM. Am I concerned about Daniels' durability? Absolutely. Would I bring in every medical expert I can find to evaluate his injury history and biomechanics before handing him a massive extension? No doubt. But would I let that stop me from extending him if all the medical signs are positive? Not a chance. Because here's the reality of the quarterback market in the NFL. If you've got a franchise QB, you pay him. Period. End of story. Look at what happened with the Ravens dragging their feet on Lamar Jackson. Look at the drama the Niners are dealing with now with Brock Purdy. When you've got your guy, if you lock him in, because the price is only going up. And Daniels has proven he's that guy. The numbers don't lie. The impact doesn't lie. When he's on the field, this team is different. When Mariota steps in, the offense becomes a watered-down, conservative version of what it should be. That's the difference between a franchise QB and a veteran backup. But let me play devil's advocate for a second. Cowherd also brought up a valid point. The quarterback market is insane right now. Deshaun Watson got $230 million fully guaranteed. Jalen Hurts got $255. Joe Burrow got $275. If Daniels keeps balling, he's going to want something in that range when it's time for his extension. And what happens if you give him $250 million and he suffers a major injury in year 2 of that deal? Then you're stuck. You're paying top dollar to a QB who can't stay on the field. You're handcuffed with the salary cap. You might blow your entire competitive window. That's what Cowherd's trying to say. He's saying, hold up, let him play out his rookie deal. See if he can stay healthy for 3-4 straight years. Then extend him when you've got more data and more confidence in his durability. And from a pure risk management standpoint, that makes sense. But from a real-world NFL standpoint, that's almost impossible. Because if you wait until the final year of Daniels' rookie deal, he's got all the leverage. He can threaten to walk in free agency. He can demand a trade. He can make things real, uncomfortable. I think the smart move is to extend him after year 3, assuming he stays relatively healthy. Give him a big deal, but structure it wisely. Build in protections for the team in case injuries become a long-term issue. Add incentives tied to games played, availability bonuses, things that protect the franchise while still rewarding Daniels for his production, but ignoring the durability concerns completely. That would be reckless. And that's what Cowherd's trying to highlight, even if he's doing it in the most clickbait way possible. Because that's his job. Stir the pot, get people talking, drive traffic to his show. A mission accomplished because the entire Commanders Nation is talking about it. Twitter is on fire. Podcasts are dedicating full segments to it. And here I am spending a big chunk of this video breaking it all down. But at the end of the day, here's where I stand. Jayden Daniels is our franchise quarterback. The injuries are a concern, but not a deal breaker. What we do need to do is be smarter about how we use him. Maybe cut back on the designed runs. Maybe invest more in protecting him with a better O-line. Maybe implement a load management system to keep him fresh for December and January. Because if we can keep Daniels healthy, if we can maximize his availability over a full season, then we've got a quarterback who can take us to the playoffs year after year. Who can compete for championships? Who can be the face of this franchise for the next decade? And nitrogen monoxide one, not even Colin Cowherd with his national platform is going to convince me otherwise. So there you have it, Commanders Nation. A defense in full-blown crisis mode, but Dan Quinn is taking over the play calling. Will Harris is designated to return just when we need him most. And Colin Cowherd is out here trying to plant seeds of doubt about our franchise QB. Now I want to hear from you. Can Quinn really stabilize this defense with practice squad players going up against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in Madrid? Is Harris's return enough to give this secondary the veteran leadership it desperately needs? And are Cowherd and the skeptics right to be worried about Daniels' durability? Are they letting the ghost of RG3 cloud their judgment? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I need to know what Commanders Nation is thinking about these three bombshell stories. Are you riding with Quinn on this defensive shift? Do you believe Harris can come back and contribute right away? And most importantly, would you give Jayden Daniels a massive extension right now, or would you wait to see if he can stay healthy? And if you're new to this channel, if this is your first time watching one of my videos, let me tell you something. This is a family. We're not just casual fans who watch the highlights and move on. We live Burgundy and Gold. We break down every play, every personnel move, every cap decision. And we're here for you every single day with the biggest news, the deepest analysis, and the most passionate takes you'll find on YouTube. So if that sounds like the kind of content you want in your life, hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on the bell so YouTube lets you know every time we drop a new video. And smash that like button if you believe, like I do, that despite all the adversity, despite all the injuries, despite all the national hate, this season is not over. Because I've seen this team overcome worse. I've seen this organization rise from deeper ashes. And if there's one thing I've learned being a Commanders fan my whole life, it's this. Never underestimate the heart of this team when their backs are against the wall. Madrid is our shot to prove we still got fight, that we still believe, that we're still alive this season.